Welcome the Brain Trust on the Autonomous Enterprise with your moderator, Andy Thurai, Praveen Moturu, Miranda Nash, and Rajiv Nayan.
Hello. You guys still awake? Okay, great. So, AI. What do you guys think when I say that? Is it more of a Terminator or Johnny 5, number 5 from a short circuit? So, that's all good for the movies and storybook versions of AI, right? Whether it's scary part or good part or it's storytelling. So what is real world AI really? It's something a little bit different. It's not always about building a self-aware or self-conscious systems. It's more about learning semi-supervised, supervised, or even unsupervised from your business systems. Learn within bounds and add value to your existing systems, augmenting the decision intelligence. That's what this is about. So going to that, I'm sure you all know about this, the 3 blind men parable, right? When you ask three blind men to figure out what an elephant is, they'll come up with a story saying that elephant is all about trunk. It's all about big belly. It's all about tusk. The same way, if I were to go and ask each one of you, what is AI? The story could be slightly different. Some will say it's all about NLP systems. It's about speech to text, text to speech. Some would say robotic intelligence and decision-making systems. Some will say it's about ML systems. Some will say it's about deep learning systems. Some will say it's about this vision-based systems. Some will say it's about deep learning networks, right? Deep neural networks, that is. And you're all right, because they are all AI. So I'm here with 3 experts who are going to talk about what a real-world AI is, how they are using in their systems. The first one is Miranda from Oracle, who's going to talk about AI could be as simple as using it in your accounts receivable and payable and populating a code, right, in a B2B systems. So Miranda, why don't you introduce who you are and what you do?
Sure. Miranda Nash. I'm a group vice president at Oracle. My team of product managers, engineers, and data scientists bring machine learning and natural language processing based functionality to our enterprise cloud apps like financials, HCM, and procurement.
Thank you, Miranda. Second, we have Rajiv Nayan from Digitate. He's going to tell, you know what? AI is all about using observability and AIOps or DevOps, improving IT operations efficiency, right? Rajiv, why don't you introduce yourself?
So Rajiv Nayan from Digitate. I'm responsible for customer adoption and customer delight globally for all the Digitate customers in the area of AIOps, BizOps, and DevOps.
Thank you, Rajiv. Third, we have Praveen, who will tell you if you pee in a cup, we'll tell you if you're a cat person or a dog person, right? No, I'm just kidding. Rajiv, why don't you introduce yourself? I'm sorry, Praveen, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Andy, for that introduction. My name is Praveen Moturu. I'm the Vice President for Digital Transformation and Chief Enterprise Architect at Mars. Very excited to share some AI use cases and how we are putting AI to use at Mars.
Great. Thank you, Praveen. So Miranda, I'll start out with you. So there's this great debate within enterprises when it comes to AI systems. Should I build or should I buy? Should I do? Should I buy? What have you seen? Do customers generally go for one or the other, particularly with the shortage of expensive data science resources? What do they do, and what are you seeing?
Customers we talk to use their data scientists for their core IP, right? It makes sense. And they really want to look to vendors like Oracle and others for using AI and automating their back office operations, their human resources, or again, other types of systems that aren't core to their differentiation. It makes sense, right? It's an extension of the principle of software.
Okay. So even when they build it, or when they use your systems? Do they look for the more customized systems to what they're liking, or they just take it what you give?
Again, it depends on the domain, right? So in marketing systems, for example, a lot of customers are devoting their own data scientists to segmentation that they find to be very specialized to their business. So in those cases, we want to be able to combine our out-of-the-box models with customer-specific models. In all cases, the data obviously is coming from the customer. It's very specialized. But we find in back-office operations, we're very capable to do it as a vendor in a way that meets customers' needs.
Okay. So Rajiv, we talked about that. You mentioned that almost like 90% of the customers are operating very inefficiently, the digital operations, almost, right? So I want to ask you a question on that. You mentioned the term, I want to get that right, how to overcome the productivity paradox in the enterprise autonomous journey, and then how do customers who are doing the innovation portion of it make their operations digitally efficient?
So this is based on certain facts and experience I have gone through in the last 5 years of our business, where you deploy AI product, and primarily in the IT and BizOps space, and you take out certain work out of, I would say, the work package out of the equation, which goes onto the machine. But when you ask the question to even IT executives or business, they don't see any change. They say, it works, it happened, but what's the benefit? So the quantifiable benefit, what I call the productivity paradox, I think people have still to define. And just to take an example, we go with a very stated principle that within 5 months when we deploy the product, on the command center, I'm talking about the IT space, 85% of the noise, if you are running a traditional command center, will be taken away within 5 months. On your L2 task, 1/3 of the tickets and service requests, any incident has to be completely on the machine. We have done that several times, and we think those numbers are significant to transform your operations. But when you ask the question, what is the productivity you are getting out of it? It's very hard for people to quantify. And that's where we have gone with this model. We are now starting, and we have learned through the scars. We are, I would say what Andy was talking about, battle-hardened people. We have gone through this scar in the last 5-6 years, where we are trying to now define this into the metrics of numbers rather than words that the world will be better for you, use AI, the MTTR will reduce, what it means to you. And I think those are the elements somewhere we all have to look for. For example, one of the customers just came to my mind. Within last 3 years, we have reduced their priority 1 incidents by 70%. Now, you have to take in the context of those priority 1 incidents. If there were 2,000 people within your organization who are not able to access the system, not able to work for an hour, there is a productivity benefit to the organization. But they are just looking very singularly at the efficiency of those tickets, how it was being processed, not necessarily what it means to the business. And that's what I talked about, the productivity paradox, that people are not realizing that you can't just singularly look from the AI ops perspective onto the efficiency side of the equation of IT operations. Look for how it's helping your transactional system or a revenue generating system to have more uptime, where you can process more transactions, process more dollars, which is the business for you.
Right. So, Praveen, interestingly enough, you have this unenviable job of managing this large enterprise network for a company that's in confectionaries from candy bars all the way up to pet care, right? So I'm sure they all operate like us, different divisions, certain divisions, in their own way. How do you manage corralling them all together? But more importantly, as you're digitizing everything, one is in retail, one is in food, and one is in pet care. What's your vision of the digitizing the whole business going forward? And what's your future view, and talk about it?
No, thank you so much, Andy. I think most of you might be facing this. It's not just Mars. When we talk about enterprise, and you get one level down, it's enterprise of enterprises, right? So the more we talk about autonomous enterprise, we're already dealing with those challenges today. We can call it like a shadow IT, or we can call it like a hero efforts, whatever you want to call. They're always been there. It's nothing new. But the reality when it strikes is there's the enterprise concept where we all like the vision, mission, and the culture of an enterprise. But when it comes to execution, it's more about think global, act local kind of a scenario. Especially in terms of AI and automation, it it just brewers into the edges where they start doing AI projects. And I'll give you an example. Recently, we are asked to do a nutrition recommendation engine where you can give some parameters of the breed of the pet and the age of the pet, and maybe you should get a recommendation of what kind of a food the pet should be provided. We went ahead and built a prototype quickly as a test and learn sprint, and then we came up and said, oh, wow, this is a great learning. By the time we finished it, we found that there are already 4 existing AI projects that have done this similar effort. And it is happening because we don't have a good structure of AI cataloging or maybe more communication across. Because the 4 projects that happened, one in Russia, one in China, one in Brazil, and one in India. So it's really hard in the enterprise to really get that like continuum to say. So what we realized in an effective way is we wanted to publish the enterprise standards, which are the platform standards and which are the data standards, the security controls. Though at that level, it's very easy. Even for a AI catalog and data dictionaries and all, those are really good maturity, right? But when it comes to actual project implementation, sometimes it should be okay to let individuals test and learn. And at some point, you need to standardize that platform concept. So like the nutrition engine right now, we have 4 of those nutrition engines. Now we bring it as a nutrition engine platform. And once we position that, then most of the businesses would start looking into using it. But it's about the maturity. We let test and learn from each other. And as the success comes in, we just solidify and standardize. I think that's the simple approach.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. So it's not about boiling everything, boiling the ocean when it comes to AI projects. Start small, implement small, incrementally go about it. So on that notion, Miranda, you mentioned a point about MLOps, which I thought was pretty interesting over lunch, right, when we were talking about it. You said MLOps, most of the areas where the companies are struggling or enterprises are struggling is not just about doing those projects like that, but after doing those projects, how do you scale that? I mean, there's a lab to production is easy, but then how do you scale up, particularly hyperscale for thousands of customers when it comes to SaaS models? Want to share your thoughts on that?
Sure. I mean, this is definitely a challenge that we try to bear for customers. So, our data science operation, our data science factory behind the scenes is scaling a given use case across, thousands of cloud customers for that use case. And then, of course, we've got many, many use cases. So absolutely, MLOps is fundamental. It's a combination for us of automated CI/CD processes, fleet testing that allows us to look at the distribution of results across customers, run models in shadow mode, make the transition based on conditions that are specific to the use case, and basically automating everything that you would do as an individual data scientist across, again, tenants, such that the scaling metric for a data scientist changes from being per model to per SaaS use case.
Great. Rajiv, similar question to you. How do you scale transformation in the autonomous enterprise?
I think one important aspect, of course, you can't start going everywhere, as you rightly said, across the enterprise to do these projects. But I think the concept of fail fast and not repeat the same process again and again in different part of the organization might be important to look at. Because once you have tested the product, you have got comfortable quickly within few weeks to few months. Then look from the lens of what's the value and the business priorities you have and where to deploy those. Where we have seen several times within the same enterprise, as Praveen was talking about enterprise within the enterprise, you will see different groups doing the same thing again and again. And that's where I think, so how to bring it together is you have to build the 2 layers, the intelligence. When I say the intelligence, get the data, of course, which is hard to get, through different sources. Get, at least in the AIOps world, through all the telemetry data, melt data, which you talked about, and get the automation going together. It's not either or. Both has to come together within a span of time so that it start delivering the results for you. Because the challenge is if you don't get it together right, most likely either you will have the intelligence, which will give you good insights and good details, but you can't close the loop. And there was a discussion earlier, right? Close the loop. That's why we call ourselves, autonomous enterprise. You have to close the last mile because that's where the real value started to come. You have got the insights, so what? Close the loop so that it starts delivering the result to the enterprise. And that's where how you scale, because suddenly you will realize once the intelligence and automation has come together onto a single platform, you will see the value at scale. And we have done that with a lot of situations where there are tremendous amount of data and automation, where we have deployed the use cases we are talking about. Almost 2 use cases every working day within the pandemic remotely has been deployed for some of the customers. And they have seen their environment, they are processing 1 million incidents in a year. Almost 30% has gone away. That's not going to humans anymore. I'm not saying AIOps will solve all the 100% of the problem, but I'm saying whatever it could do, once you have tested it, take the bet and go forward for it. And it has been tested in a few situations. It works, it delivers results.
Great, thank you. So, Praveen, so you had an interesting point. We were talking about, you said something about the digital and supply chain disruption, particularly digital chain disruption. And you talked about, with the great resignation going on and with a lot of older generation people retiring, and basically the knowledge is walking out on the door, and then you got to figure out a way to improve the digital supply chain. Particularly, you talked about the concept of tribal knowledge. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I think, autonomous enterprise really unleashes the dependency of tribal knowledge, right? Because you're bringing the technology for the sake of sustaining the business continuously without any problems. And I'll take a couple of examples here. So the supply chain one should be very straightforward. Most of the people who has in manufacturing, right? So when you go in the shop floor, there's a lot of tribal knowledge. People have been there for a long time, and especially now when labor shortages are really imminent, we need systems to capture the tribal knowledge and help. So very simple equation is most of the times when we do plant maintenance, especially machinery shutdowns, machinery support, and operational support, we have put everything into training videos and self-serving tools where the worker bee is wearing a headset, real headset, and then he's scanning a QR code, or he's definitely looking at a machine, and that's giving him all the details regarding that machine in terms of how do you operate and how do you fix the machine and how do you change the filters, how do you service it and make sure that the downtime is completely eliminated. So in the past, for that kind of incidents, we used to rely on technicians to come and service that instrument particularly, and then such kind of things are cleanly automated and make it autonomous and self-service. So that's example number one. The biggest challenge most of you guys are also facing is sales. With sales is such a foundational to the business, and sales people are constantly changing. And every time a sales guy comes in, if you end up training him and not helping him to perform, then that's the kind of a laggard you are in the industry. So what we did is we built AI-based training, chatbots or agents, chatbots and agents. And also it's more like a self-service kind of. The sales guy nowadays is waking up in the morning, he opens a dashboard and he's clearly told what customers he need to visit, what are the orders based on the past ordering, and what is the cross-sell, upsell opportunity, and then he's done for his day. He's not spending time taking sales training, hey, what's my quota, how do I sell, what's my cross-sell, what's my new product. All that is built into system for him. I think that's how you make them autonomous and more self-service to push and put really AI and automation into action. And that's what also the closed loop systems or self-aware systems are going into action, truly speaking, in transforming what we've been doing in the past and where we are going in the future.
Great, awesome. I have 20 more questions, but unfortunately, our time has expired. If any of you guys have questions for the panelists, you're welcome to reach out to them. They'll be here for the next 2 days. I think you're here just for today. The rest of them are here for the next 2 days. Or if you want to talk to me, hit me up. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Thank you.